Hi, I'm Nick Holmes, and I want to talk to you about the fall of the Roman Empire. It's a subject we've all heard of. Indeed, one person said it lies at the heart of the modern Western psyche. After all, if Rome fell, what hope is there for us? But few people can agree on why it fell. One German historian listed 210 reasons, and I wouldn't disagree with most of them. But the problem is the complexity of the subject, which is why I think it's best to listen to the story. And as the English historian Edward Gibbon said, it is one of the greatest stories in all of history. So where should we begin? Well, I think the best place is the crisis of the 3rd century. This was where Rome had to face the growing power of both the Persians and the Germans. Let's look at the Persians first. The big change in Persian history was the replacement of the Parthian dynasty with the Sasanian. The Sasanians were simply much better than the Parthians. They had a much more centralized government. They rebuilt the army so that its core heavy cavalry, who'd always been the centre of the army and who the Roman infantry were terrified of. They called them klibenarii, meaning boiler boys in Greek, because they were like medieval knights. They were clad in armour, so were their horses. They could also shoot arrows very accurately, so they were absolutely deadly. And in the 3rd century AD, we get a resurgence of Persia under the Sasanians that poses a real risk to Rome's domination of the Eastern Mediterranean. Rome's other big enemy was the Germans. Of course, the Germans had always been an enemy of Rome. I mean, ever since Julius Caesar marched to the Rhine, where he stopped because he thought it simply wasn't worth conquering ancient Germania, which was vast. It stretched from the North Sea to the Black Sea and much bigger than modern Germany. The key feature of ancient Germania in Julius Caesar's time was the political fragmentation. There were some 300 different tribes who were fighting each other. They posed very little threat to the Romans. But in the 3rd century AD, this changed. We have much larger tribal groups forming, such as the Franks, the Alemanni, the Goths, the Vandals, and it was these tribes who invaded the Roman Empire in the 3rd century AD. So what happened? Well, from AD 250 to, let's say, 285, there was carnage in the Roman Empire when the Germans and the Persians overran most of the East and the West. The Romans suffered 2 spectacular defeats. In 251, the Roman Emperor Decius was defeated and killed by the Goths in the Balkans. And in AD 260, the Roman Emperor Valerian was defeated and captured by the Persian Shah Shapur. Shapur made him into a footstool for him to mount his horse before he flayed him and hung his skin on display in the Persian capital Ctesiphon. The unthinkable was happening. The Roman Empire was collapsing, and the Roman army, which had been invincible for centuries, was nearly destroyed. I estimate that in those 35 years, maybe up to 250,000 Roman soldiers were killed. But this was not the end of the Roman Empire. The scale of this destruction provoked a revolution, and it began in AD 268 in Milan, or Mediolanum as the Romans called it, in northern Italy, when a new type of emperor was proclaimed. His name, Claudius. He would become known as Claudius Gothicus because of his victories over the Goths. And he was totally different from the emperors of the past. All of the emperors had always been patricians, senators, part of the established aristocracy of Rome. Most of them came from Rome itself. Now, Claudius was a peasant. He'd risen up through the ranks by being a prize wrestler. He was huge and strong and famous for knocking out the teeth of his opponents. He even knocked unconscious a horse with one punch. And this man was proclaimed emperor in Milan, contrary to the wishes of the Senate, the people of Rome. It was a revolution. And in the next episode, we'll hear how Claudius, with his right-hand man Aurelian, transformed the Roman Empire. Aurelian would succeed Claudius. He was nicknamed Manu ad ferem, meaning literally hand on sword, better translated as man of steel. And between the two of them, they would drive the barbarians back and restore Rome's glory. And if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. You'll also find a link to my books. I've written 4 so far on the fall of the Roman Empire. 5th is underway. And look forward to seeing you next time.